Long ago, before people had cozy houses or electric lights, the world could be a very cold and dark place. At night, the moon and stars were the only light in the sky, and shadows of trees and rocks looked like strange creatures. Humans back then didn't have blankets made of fabric, so they had to curl up under animal skins to keep warm. They didn't have stoves or heaters either, so cold nights could feel endless. Food was eaten raw because cooking hadn't been invented yet, and sometimes it made people sick. Winter was especially hard, with icy winds and freezing rivers making life a daily struggle. Imagine trying to bite into raw meat while your teeth are chattering. That was life before fire. One day, a group of early humans noticed a strange light flickering in the distance. It was bright, warm, and seemed alive, dancing in the wind. They didn't know it yet, but they had just seen fire for the very first time. At first, they were afraid because fire crackled, roared, and could burn if you got too close. The flames seemed like magic, or maybe even a powerful spirit from the sky. Some brave hunters decided to sneak closer to see what it was. The heat touched their faces and hands, and it felt wonderful after days of cold rain. They saw it came from a tree struck by lightning, its branches glowing red and turning to ash. This was the moment that would change human history forever. One hunter picked up a burning branch, holding it carefully so it wouldn't go out. They carried it back to their shelter, protecting it like treasure. The warmth spread through the group, and people began to gather closer. For the first time, they could sit without shivering. They learned that fire gave light at night, letting them see more than just shadows. It also scared away predators. Lions, hyenas, and bears didn't dare come too close. Soon they discovered that fire could cook food, making it softer and easier to chew. Meat that used to taste gamey and tough now smelled delicious and was warm in their mouths. Cooking also killed harmful bacteria, even though they didn't know what bacteria was. They realized roasted tubers and nuts were tastier than raw ones. The group began experimenting with putting different plants and animals in the fire. They found that fish cooked over flames flaked apart beautifully. They noticed that smoke from the fire drifted into the sky like a message to the clouds. Fire became a gathering place where stories were told and plans were made. People laughed and sang around it, feeling safer than ever before. But fire wasn't too easy to keep. It could die if it rained or if they ran out of wood. So they learned to feed it with branches, dry leaves, and even animal dung. The person in charge of keeping the fire alive became very important in the group. If the fire went out, everyone would have to wait for another lightning strike to start it again. One day, someone discovered that hitting certain stones together made sparks. Those sparks could catch on dry grass, creating tiny flames. It was like making lightning in their own hands. From then on, humans didn't have to wait for the sky's permission to have fire. They could create it whenever they needed warmth, light, or cooked food. Fire also allowed them to make tools stronger by heating them. Wooden spears could be hardened in the flames so they lasted longer in hunts. Over time, people learned to control fire, making it big for cooking or small for carrying. They built fire pits to keep the flames from spreading too far. Fire even helped them clear land by burning bushes and grass. As they moved to new places, they took fire with them, spreading this knowledge everywhere. It became part of daily life, as important as food and water. At night, the flicker of flames was comforting, like a guardian watching over them. Parents taught children how to be careful with it, warning them about burns. Stories were told about how fire came from the sky, the gods, or even from magical animals. Some believed it was a gift meant to make humans different from all other creatures. Indeed, fire allowed humans to live in colder regions where they couldn't survive before. It let them explore caves, stay warm in snow, and see dangers in the dark. Cooking made their diets healthier, helping their bodies and brains grow stronger. With stronger bodies and smarter minds, they could invent more tools and plan more hunts. Fire didn't just keep them alive, it made their lives richer and more connected. It also sparked creativity. leading to clay pottery and eventually metalworking. Artists even used charcoal from the fire to draw on cave walls. In the glow of the flames, humans began to dream bigger dreams. Every night, firelight turned ordinary moments into something magical. It was the first invention that truly changed everything for our ancestors. And from that moment on, humanity was never the same again. Fire quickly became more than just a lucky discovery, it became a powerful tool. Families began to see it as a treasure that had to be protected. They would gather around it in the evenings, feeling its warmth against the chill of the night. It was like having a little piece of the sun right there on the ground. Children would stretch out their hands toward the flames, marveling at the dancing light. The crackle and pop of burning would become the soundtrack of their nights. For many, it was the first time they felt truly safe after dark. Fire kept the terrifying shadows at bay. It scared away prowling wolves and curious lions. Even insects and snakes stayed clear of the glowing heat. Suddenly, the night no longer belonged only to predators. Humans claimed a part of it for themselves. Cooking with fire changed everything. Before fire, people had to chew raw roots and tough meat. It was exhausting, and their jaws worked overtime. Now, with fire, they could roast meat until it was tender. They could boil roots until they were soft and sweet. This made food easier to chew and digest. It also unlocked more energy from the food. That extra energy helped brains grow bigger and sharper. In a way, fire fed the mind as much as it fed the body. The smell of cooking food drew people together. A roasted animal smelled too good to ignore. Neighbors and friends would wander over, sharing meals and stories. These gatherings made tribes closer and more united. Fire wasn't just a tool, it became the heart of the community. Elders told tales by the flickering light, passing down wisdom to the young. Stories of brave hunts, great migrations, and mysterious spirits filled the air. The firelight made the stories feel alive, shadows dancing on the walls. People began to experiment with fire. They learned which woods burned hottest and longest. They figured out that dry sticks caught fire faster than damp ones. Some discovered that blowing gently on embers made the flames grow. Others found that they could keep a fire alive by burying hot coals in ashes overnight. The next morning, they could stir the coals back into flames. This was easier than starting from scratch. Soon, the skill of making fire became one of the most important abilities in the tribe. Those who mastered it were admired and respected. A fire maker could mean the difference between comfort and danger, life and death. Over time, people developed methods to create fire without relying on nature's accidents. They learned to strike stones together, sending out sparks. Sometimes, they used flint and pyrite to rocks that made bright sparks when hit. Other times, they spun sticks against each other until friction made smoke and then flames. It took patience, skill, and determination. Fire also allowed people to explore new lands. In cold places, fire was essential for survival. It let humans move into areas where they could never have lived before. They could warm themselves, melt ice for water, and cook food even in snowy conditions. This meant humans could spread across more of the planet. The glow of fire at night could be seen from far away. It was like a signal to anyone wandering in the dark. For friends, it was a welcome sight. For enemies, it was a warning. This place is guarded. Fire became a silent protector as much as a provider. It also began to inspire human creativity. People stared into the flames and imagined shapes in the flickers. They saw spirits, animals, and even visions of ancestors in the fire. Some began to believe that fire had a soul. They treated it with respect, feeding it carefully, and never letting it die out. Ceremonies and rituals grew around it. Fire became part of spiritual life as well as daily survival. Of course, fire was also dangerous. A small spark could grow into a raging blaze. An unattended fire could burn down an entire camp. People learned to be cautious, controlling the flames instead of letting them run wild. They built fire pits to keep it contained. They cleared dry grass from around their fires to prevent accidents. But even with the dangers, fire was worth the risk. It gave humans light, warmth, safety, and better food. It brought people together, inspired stories, and sparked inventions. From the moment fire entered human life, there was no going back. It was one of the greatest turning points in history. Fire turned humans from clever survivors into masters of their environment. The night was no longer a time of fear, it was a time for gathering, sharing, and dreaming. And so, as the flames danced under the stars, humanity stepped into a brighter future. Fire wasn't just a tool, it was a friend, a protector, and a spark that lit the way forward.